Hi, how are y'all? My name is Barbara, and I'm Nova's mom. This is Nova. I think a lot of you might already know her. So, I'm here today to talk to y'all a little bit about Nova's diagnosis, a little bit about epilepsy, and about using cannabis oil as an alternative treatment for epilepsy. And just answer a few questions that I've been getting asked. So, I want to start by giving you some statistics and facts about epilepsy. Epilepsy affects more people than multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, and Parkinson's combined. 3 million Americans have epilepsy, and that's 1 in every 100 people. And 200,000 people this year in the United States will be diagnosed with epilepsy, almost half of those being kids under the age of 8. So, in approximately 35% of epilepsy cases, the seizures can't be controlled with pharmaceuticals or other alternative methods like VNS or ketogenic diet. And 50,000 Americans this year will die of epilepsy, almost half of those being kids. And so this is only in the U.S. Epilepsy actually affects 65 million people worldwide. And so in Nova's case, her epilepsy comes from what's called schizencephaly, and that is her primary diagnosis. So schizencephaly is when the child is born with slits or clefts in the brain. And it also causes a lot of other problems. Of course, seizures, scoliosis, blindness, cerebral palsy, adrenal insufficiency, mental retardation, microcephaly, which is a small head, hydrocephalus, which is like extra fluid on the brain that requires a shunt, and also most of them are tube fed and immobile and nonverbal, so they don't eat or walk or talk and things like that. And there are only 7,000 documented cases of schizencephaly, so it is considered rare. So a lot of the times, if your child has schizencephaly in the very beginning, like when you just find out, the doctor will tell you that they may or may not have seizures. And in Nova's case, she had her first seizure at a couple months old. So we knew pretty early on that she was going to have epilepsy. And so when your child has epilepsy, one of the first things that is going to happen is they're going to prescribe anti-epileptic drugs to your child, or AEDs for short. And some of the more common AEDs that some of you may recognize would be Keppra, Lamictal, Sabril, Onfi, Zonegran, Topamax, Trileptal, Vimpat, Valium, and things like that. And in some kids, the doctors will even go to the lengths of trying experimental veterinary drugs that are used on epileptic cats and dogs. The side effects of these medicines can range anywhere from drowsiness to vomiting, insomnia, difficulty thinking and talking, twitching, hallucinations, suicidal behavior, and unresponsiveness. So, unresponsiveness being like, so Nova used to be on 5 of these anti-epileptics, and sometimes I would go to her, like in her hospital bed, in her crib, and try to wake her up, and her eyes would just be rolled in the back of her head with very shallow breathing, completely limp, and almost just like lifeless. And nothing would wake her up. Like, you could stimulate her any way you want and it wouldn't wake her up. An ice cube wouldn't, saying her name wouldn't, picking her up and moving her, she's just limp, and you have to take her to the hospital and wait till she wakes up. So, these AEDs, I really, honestly, like, when they started prescribing them to her, I did not do my homework on them, and I was so desperate for her seizures to stop that they would just give us one and then give us another one, and it wouldn't work. So they would raise the doses and then give another one and another one and another one and raise all the doses and then give emergency meds, like, to the point where I really didn't even recognize what was going on. And I was just so desperate to stop the seizures, I was going to try anything. So if you have a child that they're trying to prescribe anti-epileptics to, or even if you have a child that's already on them, I highly encourage you to do your homework on these medications, which is something I'm guilty of not doing, and really learn what they're made of and the side effects that come with them, because they're pretty detrimental. And one of these medications that Nova got prescribed about a year ago, it's called Onfi. Onfi is actually a benzo, and they don't tell you this when they're prescribing it to your kid. It's your job as a parent to kind of learn about it on your own. Make an informative decision, know what you're giving to your child, because I was just in such a haze that I didn't. So I found out that Onfi is a benzo. So for those of you that don't know what a benzo is, a couple good examples: Xanax is a benzo, Valium or diazepam is a benzo, and benzo is a prescription narcotic. They're controlled substances, they're muscle relaxers, they're sedatives, and people actually buy these drugs on the street to get high for recreational use. So my daughter was being given adult doses of these medicines. She was 2 at the time, and I know kids that are 5, 6 times her age that are given a third of what she's getting. So her seizures wouldn't stop, so we had pushed the doses like extremely high for her. But what's even worse than the side effects of these medicines is what happens when you try to take your child off of the medicines. So I actually found out that benzo withdrawals are worse than heroin withdrawals, especially if the person's taking the medication over a prolonged period of time or in high doses, which Nova was. And one of the things that can happen from these withdrawals is called status. So status is defined as a dangerous and deadly condition in which epileptic seizures follow one another without recovery of consciousness in between them. And before we got Nova started on her cannabis oil, she was actually in status most days, and it wasn't due to any withdrawals from her medicines. It was just, that was how she was. And we got like mini EEGs on her, and it showed that she was having 24/7 seizure activity from the right frontal lobe of her brain and the right posterior of her brain. So some days it was considered status. The seizures were pretty much back to back. She experiences atonic seizures, myoclonic seizures, which are like myoclonic jerks, and the drop seizures. And she also experiences grand mal seizures or tonic-clonic. So, and this was going on all day. So we had reached a point where we tried every medicine that we could for a kid her age, and we couldn't take the levels up anymore. She, like I said, she used to be on 5 anti-epileptics. They didn't work by any means. These medicines did not help to control her seizures at all. She was still having seizures all day, and all I was doing by giving them, these medicines to her. I was just subjecting her to the side effects of them. And if I would have known better, I wouldn't have given her many of these in the first place. Because they really set her back. They're really not good for you. So really do your homework on these medicines. Because I didn't. So, like I said, we had tried every medication that we could for a child her age. So, what happened was we got put back in the hospital because she was in status again. And her doctor at the time, her neurologist, actually quit. So, she didn't leave the practice, but basically what happened was they sent in another doctor. He's like, "Hi, I'm your new doctor. Your old doctor didn't know what to do anymore. So I'm going to take over Nova's case." And he pretty much explained to me that we were at the end of the line and he wanted to give her brain surgery. So this surgery that he wanted to give Nova, it's called a lesionectomy. It's a surgery that's performed to remove lesions from the brain. And so, just to give you an example, like a lesionectomy would be removing a brain tumor, removing any type of lesion, but in Nova's case, her lesion were 2 parts of brain on the right side. So she wasn't born with much anyway, and they wanted to take out more. And I immediately started doing my homework on the surgery. I found out that in most cases, the person will remain awake during the surgery so that the doctor can use a probe to stimulate different areas of the brain in order to avoid removing any vital areas of the brain. But with Nova, first of all, she's blind, so she wouldn't have been able to read the note cards. Like, they'll put a stack of note cards in front of your face and tell you to name the color and then touch another area and tell you to, like, read the words so that they don't take anything important out. But not only can she not see or read, she can't talk, so that wasn't going to be possible. And I also learned that in 80% of cases, people that get the surgery, there is failure to relieve the seizures. So most of the time, it doesn't work. There can also be damage to once healthy brain tissue and full and permanent paralysis and death. So, that was pretty much, like, we went home. It took a couple days to sink in, and then it just kind of hit me, and I was kind of just like, all right, well, we're gonna move. We're moving to Colorado, because if we stay put, there, she could die from the surgery, and we can always go to Colorado, try the oil for her. If it doesn't work, then we can come back, and then we can do the surgery. But you can't undo the surgery. So, we came to Colorado, and I get a lot of parents that ask me, so how do you do this? And what number do I call first? And help me, because I'm so lost in how do you do it. It's different. Like, for every family that has to uproot to move to a new state, it's going to be different than what we experienced. But what we did, I figured, well, first we need to be in Colorado. That's the most important thing. So while we were still back in Texas, I started calling around trying to find which doctors prescribe medical marijuana to kids. And at first I thought it would be a neurologist because it had to do with her epilepsy, but every neurologist I called said, no, you're crazy, no. So I found out that it has to be a natural medicine doctor. And I found out that there's 2 that prescribe the medical marijuana to children that qualify. One of them being Vibrant Health Clinic. So they told me we had to have proof of residency in Colorado. So I got an appointment over the phone, and that's what I did. And there had to be 2 doctors to sign off on the card. So at Vibrant Health Clinic, both doctors are in the office. You go and they both sign off the same day. And just to let y'all know, if anybody's thinking about doing this, insurance does not cover any of this. They don't cover the oil. They don't cover the doctor's visits. So you're going to have to be paying out of pocket. And so we went in. We got both doctors to sign off for her card. And that's what we did. And you walk out the same day with a packet with all of your paperwork in it. And at that point, you're legally protected and you can give your child cannabis. So, sometimes CPS likes to bug parents that are giving their children cannabis. You know, it's hard to get it, but as long as you have those papers while you wait for the real card in the mail, you're good and nobody can touch you. You can tell your child's other doctors that you're giving them cannabis. Nobody can do anything. They can't take your child from you as long as you have that. So that's what's important, and that is why people move here. It's different. These are kids. They're not adults. So you have to really have everything in line. I believe that's really important. I take my paperwork with us everywhere we go. I'm honest with her doctors about giving her THC, and nobody can touch you. So as long as you have those papers, you're good. Those are worth more than gold. So yeah, that's what we did. We got the card, and then you can choose what kind of cannabis you want to give to your child. So this is where it kind of gets tricky because, this is going to be something that's mainly your decision. Like, do you mind if your child experiences the psychoactive effects of cannabis? Do you want them on CBD only, which is non-psychoactive? What do you want to do? So you might have to try several different strains. You might not be comfortable with THC and only open to CBD. That's totally your choice. I am a whole plant advocate, and Nova does receive THC oil, which is perfectly legal. So she does experience the psychoactive effects of her cannabis oil every time I give them to her, but I don't care. It's honestly the least of my worries. I don't care. If anything, it helps and it makes her really happy. But again, that's your choice. That's something that you're going to have to decide as the parent. It really depends on you and what your child reacts to best. You might get lucky and the first strain you try works. You might have to try several different ones. You might have to try a mixture of CBD and THC. You're going to have to try, different things. It depends on what you're comfortable with. And cannabis, it's not only for epilepsy. Cannabis can be used to treat depression, PTSD, autism, anorexia, insomnia, and cancer. So cannabis actually kills cancer cells. And that sounds far-fetched to some, but I promise you, I live in the heart of the cannabis community, and this is really happening right here in Colorado Springs. So, just a couple good examples for you. A couple children that I know and their parents that I wanted to talk to you about. Landon and Michaela. So they were both diagnosed with T-cell leukemia, and they have both been using cannabis to treat their cancer. I highly recommend that you look up both of them. You can find Landon at Offer Hope for Landon on Facebook, and you can find Michaela at Brave Michaela on Facebook. The results of this are undeniable. Landon actually had his port removed recently, 2 years early, and he's been cancer-free for 24 months using cannabis. So if that doesn't change your mind, nothing will. And like I said, it seems far-fetched. At one point, these were just people that I saw on the internet that kind of inspired me to come here to do this for Nova. And now these are real people that live a couple blocks away from me that I know personally. So this is really working for people. It's the God honest truth. So for Nova's oil, her THC oil, she has been on it now for almost 6 months. So, Nova has gone from, she used to just lay in her crib all day, constantly having seizures. She had close to no quality of life, and I didn't know her. You know, even though she was my 2-year-old, I really didn't know who she was. And, so since starting her cannabis oil and moving here, she's off 3 of her anti-epileptics. The only reason why she's still on the other 2 is because of the withdrawal symptoms. Your children are being held captive by these medicines, especially when they're on really high doses, and it's going to take a long time until she's completely off of them. And we will most likely experience withdrawals while we're taking her off of those. And, I mean, it's undeniable. Her seizures have diminished. She has a couple seizures a week. And so, since her seizures are gone, she's doing things that she never could before. She's trying to stand up. She says, "Mama." She will look at me and say, "Mama," and smile. And I can hand her a toy, and she'll hold it in her hand, and she'll shake her rattle around and play with it without dropping it. And if she does, she'll roll around to get it. It's amazing. I never thought that I would hear her say "Mama" ever. And she's 3 now, and it took a while, but she does. And she says it pretty regularly, and it's priceless. So I definitely recommend trying this. If you're in a position like we were, I definitely recommend trying this for your child. These kids are all the proof that I need, and this is very real. I hope that this video can reach somebody like me that was scared and that was alone, and I had to do this by myself. I did have a bit of guidance. I was lucky enough to have gotten in touch with a couple parents that moved here that could give me a little advice. But I hope that this can reach somebody and kind of guide you a little bit, because it's not an easy thing to do, but it's definitely worth it. Colorado is great. It's a great place for our kids. And sadly, depending on your zip code, you can get the medicine you need to save your life or not. So if your state does not have legal marijuana, rather than waiting around if you don't have time, I could definitely recommend moving here for yourself or for your kids. So thank you for everyone that's watched. If you want, you can follow Nova on Facebook at supernova. It's all one word. You can also follow Offer Hope for Landon and Brave Michaela on Facebook. And if you could please visit wearerare.org to learn more about kids like Nova with schizencephaly. And you can also visit cpninstitute.org and cureyourowncancer.org to learn a little bit more about cannabis and what cannabis can treat. And you can also watch the full-length Rick Simpson story, Run From the Cure, on YouTube. And thank you very much for everybody that has watched this. Share it with your friends. If you know anybody with an epileptic child, share it with them. A child with cancer, share it with them. And get the word out, because you can help save somebody's life just by spreading this information. Help others make an informed decision about cannabis and do the research for yourself. And thank you for watching. Bye.